Hello and welcome. My name is Aaron and this is the Thrive Alive podcast, where I'm going to be sitting down and chatting with some pretty special people that have inspired me along my health journey. I hope these discussions can inform and inspire you along your journey, so please listen with an open heart and an open mind and enjoy the show. Thanks for tuning in. Well, welcome Ben to the Thrive Alive podcast. Thanks so much for having me here today at your beautiful home. I just wanted to say, man, it's such a beautiful day, and walking down the driveway after having been here for about 2 years and seeing the beautiful community gardens and just the energy in the place, it's really beautiful. But how you going? You just had a big event this weekend. Do you want to tell us all about it?
Yeah, bro, just together with my beautiful partner, we shared a real deep dive healing immersion day. It was a full day of ceremony. So we started with breath work to sort of really anchor and put people's conscious minds at ease, to let them feel that they're safe and know that they're safe to release. And then we went in with a deep dive, a ceremonial dose of mushrooms, and it's all about them going inwards before, they take off their masks and everything, and sort of are hit by the surroundings and environment, because it can be pretty overwhelming and attract and take people out of their experience. So for the first part, for us, it's important that you deep dive. It's all about the introspection within yourself, and being able to be present enough with yourself to observe what's coming up for you and what programs you might be running. And it's about bringing the subconscious and the unconscious programming and patterns and beliefs and thought forms to the surface, so that you can then have an opportunity to witness them and observe whether they are for your highest and greatest good. And then give that energy to clear it, or sort of go, hey, this isn't right, this isn't cool, I shouldn't be doing this, or my life should take a little different direction. So it's a really powerful day. And then once everyone sits up and we get everyone around the fire, and we have some cacao, and sort of, again, just expanding the heart even more, and we give honor with the sacred foods. The way that we do it has been largely influenced by my time traveling and learning from the elders, especially North, Central and South America.
Wicked, man. We'll get into all of that. But I always start off the podcast with this one question, and that question is, what's keeping you thriving, and what is thriving in your life today?
That's an awesome question. What's keeping me thriving is the drive and the vision and the prayer that I have for not just myself, but for my family, for my little boy, and all the work that I do, and, the people that feel called to come and work with me, and everything is, if I can help create a more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible, then that's, for me, the most important thing, and keeping that vision. And it's programming within myself that I'm operating and running, of just having to do, rather than just sort of sitting back and allow a bit more. It's the space between events, between the doing, that the inspiration, ideas and things will come to light, which will give you the energy and the spark to then create that and implement that and see it manifest into your reality. Because, we are conscious creator beings. So our thoughts, our words, everything is so important. And the same prayer, I always share this in all our ceremonies, and for myself, my own personal prayer and vision is always the same, and it's praying for just a simple life, a beautiful, happy life, nature, offering healing and expansive spaces for people, and our own little piece of land that we can become custodians of, that we can take care of and give back to. And whether it's here in Australia or overseas, wherever that is, that's where we'll be called, and that's where we'll set up base. And yeah, what's keeping me thriving is just the drive for that prayer, that vision, trusting that what I'm doing is all working towards achieving that vision and making it a reality.
Beautiful, brother. I love the Charles Eisenstein quote in there.
Yep.
And you said something that reminded me of my mentor, Johannes says, living between the space. He says, living between the space of the breaths is like, that's where the magic happens, right? But yeah, let's back it up a little bit from before Sacred Breath of Life. I might actually, before we do that, share my experience with Sacred Breath of Life. Because actually, you came into my life at a time, that was quite significant. I was in a realm of depression for quite some time, and just recently, climbing out of that, attempted suicide, which left me with some injuries where I wasn't able to go to work. So I was forced into yin and had to rest. And that's when, that was my hero's journey. And often, a shaman or a hero or a mentor or a teacher will show up, and you were one of those teachers in my hero's journey. So I ended up booking a session with you, and I didn't really know what to expect. I just heard this guy has got some powerful shit. So I was like, okay, sign me up. I'm ready for any like depth of healing or journey to go on, just to get my head right and my mental and physical and mental, emotional and spiritual just back on track, because I've just felt so constricted for so long. And yeah, when I came and saw you, you blew tobacco up my nose, which I didn't even know how to describe that experience, like that first experience. And I've had it a couple of times since then, and it's now become a staple medicine in my life, bringing me back grounded down to earth. And then after that, we had the cacao, which then opened up my heart. And then we went into the sauna, which kind of surprised me. We'd also did breath work in there, and I was like, what the hell? That dark sauna turned into a completely different room. It was so psychedelic for me. And then we jogged to the beach and jumped in the cold water. And for me, feeling so low for so long, you just like, boom, burst me, put me on top of this mountain, and gave me so much energy where I could have the clarity to eat better, had the clarity and energy to go to the gym and do all these new things where I was so depressed. I just didn't have that energy to do that anymore. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for holding that space and seeing me, because I was so connected when I was younger to nature and spirit. And as I grew older, some of the crowds I was hanging out with kind of shunned that. So I would push it down as well. But I always knew, there was something in there that was pulling me back to nature. And when I first came and saw you and using your traditional like feathers and the smoke and just the methods that you do is beautiful. And it just reminded me myself, just it's okay to show that feminine side of being masculine, because we are whole, we are both yin and yang. But yeah, let's dive it into before Sacred Breath of Life. So who was Ben before Sacred Breath of Life, before the cacao, before the plant medicines, the ceremony?
Yeah.
Like I saw a photo of you, I think, playing football, and you look like a much different person to who you are now. So yeah, let's hear about who was Ben before Sacred Breath of Life.
Yeah, as you said, bro, it was before all of this, it was completely different path, and it was my identity being that rugby player, sort of buffet. I grew up started playing rugby league from the age of 7, and then all the way up to 17, and then I was always considered too small. I was thereabouts and good enough with skill level and all that, but they said, no, you're too small. I've been getting that forever, because I was always the shortest. I was the smallest growing up at school and everything. I was like the little runt, but I would just put my body on the line. And over the years, I just had this toughness, this ability to just push on, because it wasn't that at the start. I remember going back to when I first started playing rugby league, and I was so small, and every time I'd get hit or a hard tackle, I'd stay down and that sort of stuff. But it's sort of getting older and coming into my own and coming into my body when I really started to change. I was just getting up. It was all about getting up. 18, I switched to rugby union, and I just had this vision. I always wanted to play with para rugby union, and so I went to 18. I played my first year of rugby for subbies, and I started off in Colts, which is like under 21s, for like a local division, and then by the end of the season I was playing first grade in the seniors. So I was like, all right, next year I'll go down to para and give it a go. Like, I had no idea. I thought, go down, try out and see what it's about. And same thing, never really played rugby, or I learnt the rules from Jonah Lomu Rugby. I never was a big gamer or anything like that, but I got a PlayStation when I was like 18 years old, a second-hand one, and Jonah Lomu Rugby was on it. So I literally learnt the rules by playing Jonah Lomu Rugby. And I just picked up the rules on the run, and again I spent a couple years in Colts, which is under 21, and worked my way from second, third grade to first grade, and for me that was really big. And then my first year of grade, I finished, and again started off in second grade, and then was up and down in between first grade and stuff. And they said, look, you're good and you'll make it, but you're too small. And it was a story that I'd heard forever.
Yeah.
And they were right, because I was 71 kilos dripping wet, and I was coming up against boys that were 140 kilos running at me, and I was playing fullback and that, so if they break through the first line, they're coming full speed. So I was pretty the body was aching and in places that I didn't even realize could ache at the end of games and by the end of the season. So I'd never really gone to the gym much. That wasn't really a thing. And at that first season, I was still playing rep touch football. I was playing state nationals and city cup and everything. So I was literally training and playing 7 days a week. If I wasn't playing, I was training. If I wasn't training, I was playing. And in between that, working 2 jobs. So there wasn't a lot of time for space and pause. And in that first season, I grew up and I started going to the gym. I went on a seafood diet. I just sort of, if I saw it, I ate it. KFC became my best friend, and taking supplements and everything, and really having a proper focus in the gym. And I stayed away from cardio. I gave away touch footy. I gave away tennis, which I enjoyed playing as well, and just really focus and concentrating on getting my body right for the next season. And I went from 71 kilos I was by the end of that season, and I went to 84 and a half in 3 months. And it was all natural and everything, just by eating and everything. And then that season came through. I was bigger, I was stronger, and I dropped down to about 81 that by the end of that season. And then I did the same routine and everything, and I went from 81 to 94 and a half.
Wow.
And then came back down, and I was playing at around 90s. I was like slower. I thought in my head I was still moving as agile as what I was, but then as I came down, my playing weight got to about 86 and 84, and I felt strong enough to be able to throw my body up, and I was willing to go into contact more and just sort of put my body on the line. So it was a big transformation for my body, and really coming into my space, and sort of people going, oh, I remember I ran into an ex student that I went to school with, and he hadn't seen me for a few years, and he always remembered me as the skinny runt sort of thing. And he looked from across the road and went, holy fuck, is that you? Like, what the hell, are you been on the gear or what? And it was just me really training and really going into that. Growing up and becoming close with the boys, because when you're playing first grade in the shoot shield and everything, you're spending a lot of time training 3 nights a week, sometimes more, with recovery sessions, game day, you become really close with the boys that you play with and train with. It's almost like second family, and that's what it felt like. And end of 2009, we created a what was it called? It was called Deadwood Rugby Club. It was a charity team that that a few of us were the group of, because we were at the end of that 2009 season. We were considered Deadwood, and the club was like, we need to cut these players so we can start fresh, because 2008 there was significant money being poured into the club and development and all that sort of stuff. And the end of 2008, it was that money had finished and dried up. Coaches left, a lot of the money that we had and resources all left. So that season we were playing for free, and it was for the love of the club, and we did that and sort of literally kept the club afloat. It was almost going to go down, and it's a club that has a rich history in the western suburbs and that sort of thing. So at the end of the season, when they sort of were looking to rebuild and all that, and they're like, what are we going to do with the players? Like, what about the players? How are we going to look to retain? And the presidents and the people at the top were sort of like, oh, they're not worth retaining. We need to cut the deadwood and start fresh. So we got wind of that, and we sort of created this club, the Deadwood Rugby Club, and we entered tournaments, 7s and 10s tournaments. We played a few over in Hawaii. And any money that we won, prize money, all went back to the Children's Hospital. And that sort of grew, and players from all clubs all around the Shoot Shield and the subbies comps and all that, there was a no dickhead policy, and if you're a good bloke and wanted to have a run, and then you were welcome to into the club sort of thing. And that was what I looked forward to the most, playing rugby and everything. So it was hanging out with the boys after and that sort of thing. And then from there, like, I was on the cusp always of, I felt I was good enough and, to play higher levels and that sort of thing. And I didn't realize it at the time. You look back and reflect on life and the way I was going and what I was doing, because, I had fun on the field and with the boys and everything. I know I put too much pressure on myself to perform, and it was almost like, have you seen that movie Any Given Sunday? Do you remember that? It was like Al Pacino, Jamie Foxx and that sort of stuff. Incredible movie, and I watched that growing up. And the quarterback, the main player, he would throw up before every game. And I remember my first game of first grade. It was, I get called up midweek, late week, and sort of said, our fullback's gone down and you're starting. And I was like, it was my first time starting first grade. And I was like, oh shit, all right. And I felt so nervous because, for me, it was like I didn't want to make mistakes. So I didn't want to let my team down. So that was almost, I can see now on an unconscious level, it was holding me back from going further and higher, because I wasn't taking those risks on the field because I wanted to be safe. And I was extremely safe player on the field, and played fullback and wing a lot. And I remember I got to half time and it was really close and everything, and I just felt so nervous and I just puked my guts up. And literally every week, and it wasn't something that I forced myself to do, it just happened every week. The warm up, as we were warming up, I would have to run off early. I'd run to the sheds and I would spew my guts up. And it was like I was releasing the nerves. And it was sort of like, all right, now I'm ready to run out on the field. And it was pretty crazy. That was like my ritual. It was part of my thing. It was what I did. They're like, oh, yep, he's off to do that. All right, he's ready to play. And if I didn't do that, they'd be like, oh shit, what's wrong? So I would do that, and then I'd have fun off the field as well. Like I wasn't always a big drinker and all that, but when you're with the boys and that sort of stuff, you say one and then it turns into 21, and then you have party supplements and all that sort of stuff that goes with it afterwards, and it turns out to a massive night and that sort of thing. So it was fun, and I don't regret it, but I always knew and felt that I was meant for something more. And at the time, I thought it was playing, Super Rugby and fulfilling that dream. And I realize and look at it now, it wasn't just my dream. Like my parents, my father was like, yeah, always pushing, and nothing was ever good enough, and that sort of stuff on the field, and always had to do more. And it was like I had an opportunity. It was like they were coming. I started off the season on fire, and it was my last chance. It was my last year. It was sort of getting on the cusp of age-wise to play in that high arena and that level of arena, especially as a rookie and that sort of stuff. And they said, yeah, they're coming to watch you. And I was like, oh shit, okay. And I remember the game, TV game, ABC game at the time, and I started off on fire. Everything I touched, all the little things were just going well. And then it was early in the game. It was like in the 10th minute or something like that. It was pretty early, and they put up a midfield kick, and I only had eyes for the ball, and I was looking up. And then as I sort of left the ground, sort of just up that, I jumped up, and one of their players just came bolting through, elbowed me in the face in the air, and I went limp and knocked me out. And then I just fell to the ground. I felt a crunch in my ankle, and then I was down. And I don't remember how long I was out for or whatever. And then my nose, I got up from the ground, nose pouring blood and all that sort of stuff. So blood rule, go off, get yourself patched up. And my vision was blurry and everything. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? All right. And then they stopped the blood, and I was like, just had to center myself because I was all over the place. And they're like, all right, just go for a jog up and down. And I was like, I can't move. Like my ankle, I can't run. And they're like, oh, we'll strap it up, strap my boot up and everything. Like, get back out there. Because that was the mentality, right? Like, play through everything, play through anything. And,
suck it up, son.
Suck it up. Had broken noses like in the years before that. I broke my nose like 5 times in one season.
Yeah.
I had friends calling me Roman because my nose was roaming all over the place and everything. And so it was significant, and just played through it. And anyway, getting back to that, and I went out on the field, and went back out, and they had a play. They were on the attack, and I had no lateral movement. And then they ran around in between me and one of the others on my outside, and I just collapsed. My ankle was gone. And they pulled me off, and I knew that was my shot, and that it was gone. And I remember getting into the sheds, and I was just like, I broke down. It was the first time I really had or showed any real emotion and cried, because I knew that was that dream or that potential thread gone.
You know what's interesting is you said before that you wouldn't put your body on the line. And then you said your eyes were on the ball, only the ball. So you literally were taking the game so serious that you were like, the ball is the most important thing here. And then your body on the line gets taken out. Now, it's interesting because then that completely changed in like your life, really. And it was, I would say, some sort of divine intervention, because you chose to put your body on the line and do the thing. And then some would say, oh, I've been punished because now I've got a broken...
Well, that wasn't even the break.
Oh, really?
That's the thing. That was the first. That was like, when we look at it now, and had an incredible teacher and mentor of mine years ago, and we said, like, spirit comes along, when you're doing or along the path that you shouldn't be, you'll get like a tap on the shoulder. And if you ignore the tap, you might get a brick. You ignore the brick, then you're getting the Mack truck.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, that was probably the brick.
Yeah.
Because I found out from that, like, I broke down, and the guy that came on to replace me, he ended up getting the contract and going on to play Super Rugby, and he killed it. And I reflect back on it, and while I was a safe player, was known for not making mistakes and that sort of thing, he was one that was at the right place at the right time, and he put himself there, and he was willing to make the plays and not have that fear of making a mistake. That was the first thing for me, and after I knew that was it, I felt like a weight came off my shoulder, because I ended up being out for 6 weeks. I had syndesmosis, so I tore the ligament, which is the one that holds the tib and fib together. So that tore, and I couldn't walk, I couldn't run for like 6 weeks.
Wow.
And then I got back from that, and I worked hard on rehab and everything. And then 2 weeks later, I tore my hammy. I'd never done a hammy at all. And it was like something was really, it was... Who knows? That first one, the ankle was the tap and the hammy was the brick, because, that put me out. That season was pretty much a write-off. And I felt the pressure just drop. And then from that, knowing that I couldn't follow and pursue that path, it then opened me up to thinking about travel. And for the first time, I had mates from the gym and everything, and they were like, hey, we're going to spring break. We're going to Mexico and Cancun for spring break, and going to Vegas and New York, and do you want to come? And I'd always said no. I always put everything aside for footy, because once rugby season finished, I gave myself 2 weeks to party, drink, whatever. But then after that, I was back in the gym.
Yeah.
And I was 6 days a week or whatever it was, to work on my fitness and strength and everything to prepare for the next season. So I blocked everything out and put everything into that. And then once I knew that I wasn't working towards that anymore, I was playing more for fun. I played the best rugby that I ever played. And I was going over and having a lot of fun and experiencing the best and all that America and the Mexico had to offer, and getting into trouble and running away from police and that sort of stuff. But it was fun. And it was like, oh wow, I'm actually living. And from there, like later in the year, we went to Croatia and Greece and Eos, and the stories of partying and drinking and that sort of stuff just let loose. And it's something that I never gave myself the opportunity to do. And then from there, I got an offer to play subbies, because I was giving too much of my time away to rugby, and I wanted to pull back, and I wanted to just have some rest, because 20 years of training 2 to 3 times a week and playing and all that, I felt like I started to need more time. So I got an offer from one of the old managers in the club that was working at the club, and said, hey, come over for this. There's a lot of boys that used to play shoot shield, and you train once a week. It's more for fun, but still taking it serious at the same time. So all right, I'll give that a go. And it was so much fun. Again, it was me willing to step up and be that safe player, but also take chances. And because it was sort of like less pressure, and just really playing the best rugby I ever played. And I remembered what it was like to play for fun again. And enjoy it. And that took me to Queensland, playing at Suncorp Stadium, at the biggest stadiums in the precursor to the Wallabies games, and absolutely killing it. And I loved it. It was fun. And I moved clubs, and again, still playing with, playing for that fun and the love of the game while being good at the same time. And that's when the accident happened.
Right.
And with that, I've only experienced slow motion twice in my life. And this was one of those moments where I had slow motion, where I got an offload. We were already up. It was like 47-0 and not even half time. And I got an offload, and I saw a gap, and I went to push off to dive for the try line. And as I did that, 2 players from the opposing team came to cover and tackle me from the side, and I just felt this yank. It felt like something had yanked me. And I don't know how. And I remember everything happened in slow motion. I rolled over and I dropped the ball, and then as I went to put the ball down and bounced it, and I remember the whistle going, like blowing, because I lost the ball over the line. It wasn't from the impact, it was from the yank back that I wasn't prepared for. And that's when everything went back to normal speed again. And the guys got off me, and I sort of rolled over and looked at my foot, and it was like this.
Yeah.
And it was like, in my head, my mentality was, fuck, what is this? You know, is it my leg broken? Doesn't look normal. Leg broken. Is that, how much is that? That's like 6 to 8 weeks rehab and I'll be back on the field.
I'll jog it
My
off.
mentality was always like, when can I get back?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it's not my leg. It's too low for that. And I looked at my foot and I thought it was my ankle dislocated. I was like, oh yeah, that's the ligaments, a few ligaments and that out of place. I'll be back in 4 to 6 for that and I'll be good. So I couldn't move. And at the time I didn't realize a couple of my teammates that were standing behind me, they were like, they couldn't stand to look because they said they heard the snap from like 10 meters away.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear a snap. I didn't feel it, anything. And so they didn't have a stretcher or anything like that. So they pulled out a door from the canteen or whatever and put me onto a door and took me off the sideline because like, no, like, boys have got to keep playing. Don't stop the game for me, you know, I'll be right. And I didn't feel any pain or anything like that. And then, you know, ambulance came, cut my boot off, and I was in that and looking at my foot just like almost at a right angle. And it was actually my, by the time I got to the hospital, it was my first psychedelic experience because they gave me ketamine to sort of help me put my foot back.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, dislocated. They'll put me under. I'll get it back into place and away we go. They initially thought that it was a motorbike accident because my foot was that badly like deformed and disfigured and everything. And I was like, no, rugby. And they're like, how did that happen? Like I was in my rugby boots and everything. Like there is no way that your foot could do what it did when it's like confined in a rugby boot.
Yeah.
And it was like, shit, yeah, I don't know.
So what happened? Was it the tibia snapped or?
No. So
what was the crack?
The crack was, so there's 26 bones in the human foot. And I remember coming out of this psychedelic experience. And I just want to share that one, touch on that quick because, you know, they're like, my parents were there with me in the hospital room and they're like, look, we're going to give him ketamine because we don't want to put him fully under and we'll try and put the foot back into place and everything. And we're going to give him ketamine. I was like, I don't even know what that, I haven't tried that. I haven't had that. I was like, okay. And it's like, look, so he might experience this, but he might like go into like a K-hole sort of thing. They use the medical term for K-hole, whatever that was. And like he might start crying or yelling or whatever. And so I went into the operating theatre. They put the ketamine in and it was like a Neo moment from the Matrix when he first gets offered the red or blue pill and he takes the pill and it travels up, that grey metallic sort of travels up his throat and sort of comes up into his mouth and he sort of like goes like that dial tone internet sort of sound. That's what was happening to me, except it was completely black. Everything was completely black, and then I was like that, making that sound, and then I went pop, and I was in space. I was floating in space in black and nothingness, and I was just complete weightless. And I saw these angels flying, like wings, white halo, everything, like beautiful angels. And there was 2 of them, one on either side, holding like these strips. And as they were flying past me and towards me, they were putting these strips around my feet. And it felt warm. I felt warmth around my foot and everything. And then I had my arm off the side of the bed, the medical table. And the next thing I know, I'm sailing in the Mediterranean. And I'm just laughing, just like feeling and seeing my hand like wading in the water. And I'm just laughing and feeling so content. And then all of a sudden I start crying. And I wake myself up crying. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? Next thing I'm back in the room. And my mentality when that happened was like, all right, doc, you've put my foot back in. Can I go? I've got one of the boys' birthdays tonight. You know, I've got to go out. I've got to get ready to go out. And stone cold, without any expression on his face, he went, "You're not going anywhere." And I was like, what are you talking about? And he pulled up the x-ray, and stone cold. He said, "You've got breaks here. I'd literally had broken and dislocated up to 22 bones in my foot. I didn't realize there were that many bones in the foot, and every ligament and tendon snapped in the foot." And he goes, "You might lose this leg."
Holy shit.
And that was something that I just didn't conceive in that moment. And then he's like, "You're probably not going to walk again. You're not going to be able to run again. You're never going to play footy again." And in that moment, it was like my whole identity was, that's who I was. And I started shaking with anger, and I could feel myself going like ready to rage. And the nurse looked at me shaking like with this anger, because this guy stone cold was saying, "You're never going to do what you enjoy doing again. That's it." And the nurse was like, "Oh, doctor, maybe there's the room down there. Can you just go check on them?" And she's like, "It's okay, just settle down." And it was like, what the fuck? Like, who is he to tell me what I will and won't do? And then they couldn't operate. They said that my whole foot was completely black, and it was only the tips of my toes, of 3 of the toes, that were normal color. And they said, "You need to be in hospital for the next 2 weeks, and if these tips of your toes go black, we're probably going to have to cut your foot off."
Fuck.
And I was just like, that's not happening. That's not my reality. And, you know, it was the second week of, I remember it was like the second week of the school holidays, just before Anzac Day and that sort of stuff. So I was like, all right, I'll go to hospital. I was supposed to stay in there for 2.5 weeks minimum, and to allow for the swelling to go down enough so that they could operate it. And by the end of the first week, I was going mental. They transported me from the local public hospital to a private hospital, and they were just like, "Your foot is way too swollen." So in that week, I was getting pain meds and everything like that, but all the dislocations and everything was there because they couldn't touch it, because it was just too swollen. And I remember just laying there and I couldn't handle it. So they're like, "You have to, if you're we're gonna check you out. You can check out, but you have to take this, and you just have to stay home and lay down and do nothing." And that's not who I was. That's not who I am usually. And it was like, I have to be doing and moving. So my thought was just getting back to the gym, getting back to work, working as a high school teacher and that sort of stuff. And I went back to school. I was getting around on the crutches and getting around on a scooter, on a 3-wheeled scooter, just going in between the classrooms and everything. And because I just had to be doing something, I couldn't just be laying still. That's not what I was built to do. That's not what I was programmed to do from a young age. And working 3 jobs and training and playing footy sort of thing, I was always doing. And then it came to the day of the operation, and the surgeon was like, "Have you been on your foot or upright?" And I was like, no, of course not, no, because it's still a lot of significant swelling. We might not be able to do it. And I was like, no, you can do it. It'll be fine. And he was like, "Yeah, well, all right, it's on the cusp. Okay." So we did that, and I remember coming out of that first surgery, or technically second surgery. It was the most pain that I've ever experienced in my life. It was the most excruciating pain ever. And I was like calling for the nurses, because I was on morphine drips. I was on all these Taj and Lyrica, nerve blockers and everything, and it wasn't working. And I called to the nurse and said, like, I need something stronger. And they said, "I don't believe you. You're just making it up because you want the pain meds and all that sort of stuff." And I said, "Who the fuck do you think you are? Like this, you can have my pain, you can have my foot. I would gladly walk out of here. I don't want to be here." And again, they said, "No, we're sorry, that nurse was out of line," and everything. Is like, I'm not making this shit up. It is fucking terrible. So, from that, I couldn't walk for 6 months. And for the first time in my life, I had to be still. And You know, it's sort of like that whole identity died with that surgery because, you know, you build up, and when you play rugby and all that sort of stuff, it's like family. Yeah, we're family, we're brothers, we're boys, and, you know, we're in this. And you'd play and turned up and play through concussion, through injury, week in, week out, putting your body on the line. And then here I was having this, and some of the boys from the team that I was playing for visited me in the hospital in that first week, but then after that, no one. And I felt alone in that because I couldn't work. I still went to school, but I wasn't allowed to train at the gym because they were like, oh no, OH&S risk because you're, you know, on your scooter or on your crutches and everything. And it was like, I just needed to move my body. And it was like I wasn't there. And we're talking about people that lived around the corner from me, like not even 5 minutes away. Yeah. And not once did I get a check in or come around. And that was a deep, dark place that I went into. And I still remember the moment, the night, and I had a bottle of vodka and that sort of stuff after a night in school. And I was like, fuck. And then I looked at that and went, no. I literally remember it was a conscious decision. I put it aside and went, no, I'm not going to go down that road. So I went back to school, and I'm so grateful for the job that I had in that moment because it kept me going. It gave me purpose. And I was training in the gym at home. I had a setup in my garage. So I was training and doing what I could because I couldn't move. And, you know, it was actually a small group of friends that I trained at the F45 that I was working at the time. It was 4 or 5 of those clients that were consistently checking in on me, coming around to keep me company and everything. And they really, really helped me through that time. And I still send them messages to this day and saying, thank you so much, because I wouldn't be here or doing what I'm doing without them. And even after that 6 months and 3 surgeries later, because I had plates, rods, screws, everything put into my foot, and something told me that I don't want metal in my body. I need to get it out. So I had that surgery to get it out. And after that surgery, and I just started to start being able to bear and learn to walk again. And man, that was something weird because I literally looked down at my leg and it was just skin and bone. There was no muscle there. And there was this gaping hole in my foot, at the top of the foot. I was like, that's not normal. And I remember getting the stitches out and everything. And I was like, Doc, is this normal? He's like, yeah, it's fine. It's just from the thing. But as the week went on, this hole was getting bigger and bigger. And I was like, that's not right. So I went to this medical center and I went, is this all right? Like, can you test it? And literally they called me on a Sunday and they're like, where are you? What are you doing? Get back here now. And I was like, oh, what the fuck's going on here? And they said, like, it's staph. Ooh. I was like, what the fuck's staph? Like, what are you talking about? And they said, if this enters your bloodstream and everything, you're losing your foot. Yeah. Like, we need to get you to the hospital. And I was like, nah, that ain't happening. I'm busy. Like, no, that's not happening. So it was like, no, okay. Take this medication. If it doesn't clear up, it's you're in hospital, and we can't guarantee that you're going to keep your leg. And I went, all right, I'll take the medication, but it's going to work. So I did that, and it cleared up. I was like, yep, sweet. And then I started learning to walk again and everything. And then it was 3 days out from a trip that I was going to Bali. And I just needed time away. I just needed to have some time for myself. And I booked what's it called again? I was going to say skydiving, but it's the
parasailing.
No, this not the snorkeling. the open water dive certificate course and everything.
Yeah, free diving.
Yeah, not free diving. It was like the scuba diving. That's the one. Yeah. And the staff came back. The infection came back, and they're like, "Nah, like you need to get this sorted." And I went, "I don't have time. I'm going overseas." "Well, we don't think you should go overseas." And I went, "I'm going overseas. I need this for my own well-being." And they're like, "Here's the medication. Doesn't clear up. You're on your own." And being in a hospital in Bali, we don't recommend that.
Yeah.
They're like, "No, it's going to be fine." So took the medication, got on the plane, had my compression sock and that because it swells up, your feet swell up and that in the plane and being in the air, and it cleared up. And that gave me, that trip really like helped me. I was free in the water and scuba diving and getting up for sunrises and hiking and watching the sunrise in all these remote beautiful areas in the island, the islands of Bali that were untouched, and going to all these beautiful billabongs and sites, and with a good bro of mine, and just swimming with manta rays, and it was just like that's what really saved me and sort of really helped me. And then from there we came back, and I was hearing these stories from a mate that I worked with, and telling me about going to Peru and going to do this ayahuasca and all that. And I was like, what's this about? Something drew me to it. And one of my other mates that I worked with, he had been there and done it, and was telling me his experiences and talking to God and everything. And I was like, I always thought I had to go there. And I was like, okay, I'm going. And the funny thing is, I had planned to go to Peru 3 times with 3 different people or 3 different groups of friends and that sort of stuff, but it never eventuated. It never landed. And I didn't know why at the time, but then I got a phone call from my mate one day, and he said, "You know that thing we were talking about?" And I went, "Yep." He goes, "Call this number. Don't talk about any names. Don't talk about anything, but just give him a call." And I was like, "Okay." And then before you know it, I was booked in.
Sick.
And it was like, okay, what the fuck did I just sign up for? He's like, he wants me to go vegan? What's that? Like I was eating, 4 meals a day, 5 meals a day at the time.
The dieta for it?
Yeah, the dieta leading up to it. And it was about, being clear of body and everything. And I was like, fuck, all right. And I was the type, like, if I'm going to do something, I've got to do it properly.
Yeah.
That's the way I approach everything, even now. So, like, if he wants me to do that, all right, what am I going to eat? But, like, lettuce? I'm not going to get by with lettuce.
What year was this?
I can't remember. It was like, was it 2016?
Okay, so veganism was
17.
starting to come around. There was
options. Nothing like what you saw, like what we see now. Like there's restaurants everywhere and everything. Like this was literally just a week of potatoes and hummus and roast veggies, which are good. Yeah. But it wasn't sustaining and filling enough for me. Yeah. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. And I arrive at this beautiful place and land, and I was just looking around going, wow, how beautiful is this? And, people are there preparing and everything, and they're just so nice and welcoming. They didn't know me from a bar of soap, and they're just like, hey, how are you? And like really present. And they'd give you a hug, and it was like, what the
genuine.
This is like, it was genuine. I hadn't experienced anything like that. And I was like,
what do you want from me?
Yeah, what do you want? Like, I thought, have I walked into a cult or what? Like, what is this? Yeah. And I didn't know what to expect. And naturally, and this is people that come and do work with me, or we dive in ceremonies. They're like, oh yeah, I've watched all these documentaries this week and about what to potentially experience and that sort of stuff. And I did that too. So I wanted to like inform myself, and I realized it's sort of, we do that, or I do that, and the people do that to talk and reassure the conscious mind.
Mm.
Because when you go into the unknown, all these stories start popping up as to why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Or why you shouldn't just go into these experiences, because you're going to leave that ego aside. The ego is going to be put aside or to the back. And you're going to see the subconscious and unconscious coming to light. And I didn't understand that at the time. So that's why I was watching all these documentaries, all these videos, you know, spirit molecule, DMT and all that sort of stuff, ayahuasca. I even reached out, I remember years ago, to Aubrey Marcus, because I watched this video, I still remember it. And he was drinking in the jungle and his eyes were just like bandicoots, bright-eyed. And he's like, I can see, I'm connected with the earth. Oh my gosh. And I was like, fuck, that's incredible. And I'm actually like, bro, like I'm sitting for the first time this week. And he actually replied, because it was before he got real big and everything. Oh, man, I'm so excited. I'm actually doing this. He's like, yeah, good for you, brother. Go for it. And I went there, and what I experienced literally changed my life. That moment changed everything and put everything into perspective. And like I'd always had an affinity towards native and indigenous cultures, but I never knew anything about it except that I just was drawn to Native American culture. And this experience just really cracked me open. And I was sitting in sweat lodges with all these chiefs, and I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, is this sweat lodge? And I didn't even know what a sweat lodge was at the time, but it was going into this sauna or this thing with all these chiefs, and they were welcoming me in, and I was sitting, and it was like, oh wow, okay. And then the next thing, I was sitting on a hill, and the landscape, everything was blank, except I was sitting on this hill. And
this is while you're in the...
While I was in the journey.
Yeah.
And I was playing the yidaki. And I'd never played the yidaki before in my life.
What's that?
The didgeridoo.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd never played it before in my life. And this Aboriginal elder was walking around me. And as I was playing this yidaki on the hill, the sound and vibration that was coming out was giving life and colour to the landscape in front of us. And he had his hand on my shoulder, and it was just like beautiful. And you know, it was a real polarizing experience in that Mallorca that night, because the person sitting opposite me was like purging, crying, and here I was like a baby on my back, just like fractals in front of me, and I was using my hands and giggling and laughing like a little child, because I was like, could change the fractals and the coloring just with my hands by moving them around. And I was interacting and seeing these beings like really deep. But the thing is, it's sort of like people talk about, you know, 4D, 5D, 6D, and it's not like the universe on top of a universe on top of a universe. I was experiencing it as a layer. It was a layer of perception just right in front, and a layer and a layer. And it was like, wow. And then something happened throughout the night. I could feel this build-up of energy. And I was like, what is going on? And it felt real. And literally, I started to crack open from my scalp. And my skin and that old self just dropped to the ground, and I was this ball of light, and I shot up out of the room and just became one with the cosmos. I was flying like a shooting star through space, and it was just like, what the fuck? Like, it was the most surreal experience I ever had, and it was that moment that changed my life. And it was like, whatever this is, it feels right. And whatever it is, I need to pursue. And that's what I did.
So did you experience cacao in this ceremony? So
No.
Where did that come into your practices?
Cacao was a couple of years later, or like at least a year later. And, you know, when I wasn't around or drawn to going out to the pubs and bars and clubs and that sort of stuff, it was just naturally falling away from me, and I didn't find joy in those spaces. It was just fake, and the illusion of talking and everything and getting close, but it was just
Not
so
too
surface
close.
level.
Yeah.
And I would literally drive to Bondi. I lived 45 minutes away, and it was like, as soon as the weekends hit, I would drive to Bondi, spend the day there, and I'd go there by myself, and I'd just go for a walk, go for a swim, and some nights I even slept there. I slept on the beach, I slept in the car, because I was going through this change and through this experience, and none of my friends or the footy mates, they weren't there. They thought I'd literally lost the plot. They thought I was like, literally in a cult or something, and
What a compliment.
I didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
I didn't know anyone that was to share my experience with back then.
Yeah.
And I would sleep and in my car, or sometimes on the beach, just because I knew that what's the point of driving back home to only come back here again tomorrow? I'll just may as well stay here. So I made a night of it. I would go to the top of the rocks and that sort of stuff at Bondi, watch the sunset, walk, get something to eat, and just be. And I was open to talking to anyone or say hello, but it wasn't a priority. I wasn't out there to chase anything or anyone, and I just trusted that I would meet like-minded people. And there was an event that came up. So in that ceremony, someone said, hey, we've got this conscious event that happens at Bondi every month and that sort of stuff, and it's cacao and sort of sound journey and conscious dance, and I was like, alcohol free, and I went, fuck, that sounds pretty cool. So I went to that, and that was my first experience of cacao and dancing, and it felt really beautiful. I was like, wow, you can do this and really connect with people without the need for alcohol. And we'd ground in with some hape and that sort of stuff, which is the tobacco up the nose that you shared with earlier. And I started to meet people, and I started to really connect in with the community there, and realizing they were on the same level and page. And it was sort of like, as you raise your level of awareness and vibration and that sort of stuff, those that may have been in your life that you still care for, they start to drop away because you're not in alignment energetically. And if you were talking to the old me about all this stuff, I'd be like, okay, whatever. I'd laugh and just go, all right, yeah, I'd listen, but then just go, whatever. But now I see it, I feel it. And I went to a couple cacao ceremonies from that, and a lot of it was around dance and movement and everything. And I was like, oh, this is really beautiful. And then I remember I was fortunate enough to travel to Mexico, and I went on this beautiful experience. This is a few years into my journey now, and we had cacao, and one of the elders, Nana Marina, came on this trip. It was like a spiritual journey through and around Mexico, sacred sites, ceremonies and everything. And she came up to me and said, I had a vision of you. And I was like, me? And this is through the translator and all that, because I didn't speak Spanish or anything like that. And she said, yeah, you're going to share cacao, you're going to take it back. And I was like, I found that as a huge compliment, because it's her lineage, and then she started sharing how to prepare it, how to share it, ceremonial doses. She gave me the blueprint of sharing this ceremony. And I got back and was like, we got to do cacao, and I don't know how it's going to look, what it's going to look like, but this is how we prepare it, this is what we do. And the only thing that feels right to do that is by introducing us carrying this medicine to the lands here, to Australia. So we went to Kurnell, at the exact spot where Captain Cook landed and put that sort of flag or where the memorial or monument is to saying, yep, this is where we came in, because that was the start of such hurt in this country. And this was a medicine of the heart. The cacao is a medicine of the heart. So my intention was to share this heart medicine with the land here and doing it in a proper way. This was what felt right to me. So the first ceremony that we held was 4 people. T, myself, and 2 friends. And we created an altar, made an offering, buried a few crystals, and there were these birds, the magpies, kookaburras, like coming really close, and we're looking around going, this isn't normal, like I haven't experienced or noticed anything like this before. And then the second time we did the ceremony, and I could really feel the energy when the first one we did, as we were walking to the space where we were going to do it, and it was like walking into this dense layer of, I don't know how to explain it, but it was real dense and felt the heaviness. And it was like, oh wow, this like really felt heavy. And by the time we came to this second ceremony, more kookaburras, more magpies, and they were walking up to our altar space and, pecking at the crystals and the offering and the flowers. I was like, how beautiful is this? I actually spent the night there. We chose to sleep at the site where we did the cacao, like just under the trees, just to be with it and that sort of stuff. And then people later told us that it was like, oh, it's really dangerous to sleep out there because, people are mugged and all this, but didn't feel that at all. And then the third time we did it, there was like 14 people, and it was growing, and we were offering it in a way that honored the medicine, honored the land, and from there it just grew, and it has become a significant part of our offerings and my offerings. And only recently I've been lucky to go to Guatemala and spend considerable time with Nana Marina and her family, and really immerse ourselves in the understanding of the importance of cacao, but the role that it plays in ceremony to then connect with the fire, and the role that the tobacco and cacao play to open you up to connect with the fire. And man, it's something that's changed my life for the better. And being able to travel to these places and spaces through Peru, again, bang, opening up and connecting with Chief Black Spotted Horse, Uncle Iz in North America, and spending time with him, learning, listening, and just, again, coming back to that stillness. It's not about doing. It was just about being still. And then when a message comes, or when something comes that calls you to act, right, we go into action. We take movement and take flight. But until then, it's about just sitting back and being. And just observing and learning that and immersing myself more in ceremony. That's been so powerful. And that's what's really shaped my life and continues to shape my life, and how I share and offer that with everyone.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Hey, have you ever copped like flack off people for like cultural appropriation sort of things? Or like, I feel like in this growing spiritual community, a lot of people like burning sage, burning palo, and serving cacao. It seems to be a quite growing thing at all these breathwork spaces. But I've been in so many breathwork and cacao ceremonies, and they're not like yours. They're not like yours and Teal's. And it's like, whatever you've learned over there in those cultures, you're bringing that back. And it's so powerful. You can feel the energy, you can feel the ancestral wisdom in the space that you hold. And some of these other people, I'm not going to name names, that try and do the same thing, it just has that missing. It's like lacking. But then you also have those people that are pointing the finger going, you shouldn't be doing that. So, yeah, have you run into that at all? Or
Yeah, we have. And, it's just not entertaining that energy and going into that debate, having that debate, because they don't know our story. They don't know what we're doing. And this isn't something that, we've just seen someone do and start copying and saying, oh, we can do that. We're going to start doing that.
Make a business out of it.
Yeah, like for us, it's not a business.
Yeah.
It's ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
And, unfortunately with these times and, we get the messages of like, if you're doing this healing work and helping people, you should be doing it for free.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, just back up for a second and let's look at the history of this.
Yeah.
Because the healers in the tribes and the communities in traditional ways were in a time where they were looked after. They, in exchange for them healing and helping people get well, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, they were taken care of. They were provided for.
Yeah.
Their clothing, their shelter, their food, everything that they needed, their needs were met.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have that now. And unfortunately, in this day and age where the fiat monetary system is a form of exchange, there's an expression of energy. So in order for us to do what we do, we need a roof over our head. We need to eat. We need to look after ourselves so that we can be at the best and highest expression to look after those that come to see us. And when people call out and, will try and entertain and pull us into that, appropriation, it's like, well, no, I've actually been given permission to do this.
Yeah.
I've spent time with those elders. We've sat with them in ceremony and they've blessed and giving us permission to do this. Nothing that we do and have done is without their permission and without us experiencing first. So, for us, it's like anything. Anyone that wants to drag you into this conflict or dialogue of like appropriation, this and pointing the fingers, it's just like, no, we don't have time to entertain.
And it's further division, right? It's further division. It's trying to bring someone like you that's on a higher vibration down to their lower vibration, right?
And that's what we're seeing, right? That's what we're seeing in this culture. And if we look at it, I was thinking about this recently, and if you go through timeline of events over the last few decades, it was almost like, all right, here's a war that's happening, it would reach its pinnacle and height and like putting it into the news and papers and everything into your awareness. And then once that sort of war died down or truce and everything, it's like nothing happened. Everyone goes back to their way of life and living until the next event happens. But if we look at the last few years, it's like the timeline and the space between events has just like become non-existent. We've seen the whole pandemic and all that sort of stuff happen, and the division that caused. Anti this or pro that.
Yeah.
And then it was like splitting. And then from there we see the whole, the
Black Lives Matter.
The Black Lives Matter and all that sort of stuff.
Gender.
This and this.
Yeah.
Then we see the gender. Then we see Ukraine and Russia. Now we're seeing Palestine and Israel. And it's all just happening so quickly. And it's all about division. Pick a side.
Yeah.
Which side are you on? Pro this, anti that.
Solar or gas.
And it's just like this division.
Yeah.
Right? So with that, it's about, how about we don't take a side and entertain the energy and give our energy to this, and we can sympathize. And I truly, deeply sympathize. I've got friends that are Palestinian and Israeli and Jewish.
Yeah.
And it's not about that, I support you and on you, because they're all beautiful people and they're all heart-centered soul people and soul family. So it's not about me taking a side and saying, yep, this and displacing and distancing myself from the other. It's like, hey, what can we do? Let's raise our vibration. Let's look at it from a higher level and look down at this situation and what is it trying to do? What is it trying to ask or take of us now? And it's taking our energy and asking us to be on one side or the other. And this whole one side, two side, it's, the political parties. In Australia, Labour, Liberal, Republican, Democrat. I don't understand any of that. Left wing, right wing. And it's sort of like, if you don't agree with me, then you're an extreme this side. And it's like, fuck, I don't care. I don't have any time for that. I am only in service to the earth, to my family, to my community. And I will act always from my heart. And that's all I ask of myself and try and share and get people that come to see us and remind them of. Like for me, it's holding space to allow people to remember that they are their own healer.
Beautiful.
And there's things that, there might be prayers and the songs and the instruments and everything that I create and share in ceremony, but it's all to help them realize and recognize and connect with this deeper aspect within themselves, their true soul self, to help them have these realizations. So that they can, it's not me doing the work. I can't breathe for you. I can't have your experience when you're engaging and coming in to sit with us in ceremony. But I can hold space and let you know that you are taken care of. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So that you can start to recognize and see, have that wool and that, that matrix sort of fake illusionary world that is trying to put you into separation removed, so that you can start seeing it for what it is, and start connecting with people that are of a higher vibration. And when you do that, you realize that when you're in those spaces with those people, time doesn't exist. Time does not exist, because you're present in that moment. You don't want to check your phone. You don't want to think about, where am I going next, or what am I doing next? You are just in the moment, because you're enjoying the company, you're enjoying your surroundings, you're dancing, you're connecting with the earth, you're sitting around the fire or playing instruments and singing, and it's like, this is what life is about. And this is what our ancestors were doing. So it's about bringing people back to that remembering, and there is a place for modern technologies and medicines and that sort of stuff, but at the same time, only when we need. I trust the research that I do and my approach to health over than going to the doctor and asking him what I should be doing for my diet. Right? There's a place. If I'm injured, like when I broke my foot and snapped it in half, I need to go to the hospital. That's where we are so lucky to live where we do, where we can, have our feet put back together, literally from, like a smashed dinner plate, and they glue it back together and everything. So that is when there is a need. But I feel more and more there is, and this is what, that whole COVID thing and the lockdowns, as bad as that was, it also helped people, because again, we're so doing.
Well, how much community was created around that? Even just where we were, I moved away now, I'm living up in the country, but the community down here, after I met you and after I met Jackson, it was just like this hub of, you guys held it down through the lockdowns. It was like separation, stay indoors, and we were meeting up every morning at sunrise, having a swim, cold water, getting a coffee. Some of us having potluck dinners later on as well. And yeah, we're just holding that community together, holding the positivity. And every time some bullshit was happening out in the public, we were like solid together going, no, fuck, if they try this with us, we can tell
absolutely.
them,
And it's about being sovereign. And we were sovereign. We knew and trusted in our bodies and what we were doing. We didn't need any foreign object or whatever it was external to us to protect us. Because what we were doing and how we look after ourselves was all the protection that we needed.
Exactly.
And we thrived and we were fine. But a lot of people were in fear. And those people that were in fear are the ones that were really buying into the narrative. And if you'd done your research and all that sort of stuff, I read about it was literally 2 years before that the governments were going to bring in this whole vaccine, and you wouldn't be allowed to travel unless you had this vaccine certificate. And I was like fuck on that's going to happen. And sure enough, it did.
I saw David Icke in 2016, and he was telling us about this. He didn't say it was a pandemic, but he said, watch Bill Gates over the next 5 to 10 years. He's got big things coming in. And then sure enough.
Oh man, the guy's he's had his finger on the pulse for the last 34 years. And I remember looking back at his documentary and it showed that interview in 1993, talking about all this stuff, and people just laughing.
Yeah.
He got laughed at.
Yeah.
And, you know, the live television broadcast to the whole country, the whole audience laughing at you.
Yeah.
And he was unshakable, immovable in who he was. He knew exactly what he was, who he was, and what he was sharing and what he held. And he talks about that, and it's like, people were ridiculing me for 30 years. I was getting pointed at, laughed at on the street, everything. And when this happened I don't even know what year it happened, but people started to pay attention to him. Yeah. And he started to do these interviews and everything. And for me, I feel personally that in the David Icke and Brian Rose interviews, the London Reel, you know, he was putting out nothing that he hadn't already been putting out and sharing for 30 years. But it was when he started talking about coming back to your heart, coming back to love, that was something that was just something on another level. Yeah. And that's when he got banned. Yeah. Like, those interviews were taken off. He was banned from every platform because he was talking about the importance of love and unity and this division and separation. Don't fall for it. And that's what we offer. And it's about coming back into that wholeness within yourself, the yin and the yang, and coming into balance, but also bringing that balance to your community. And, you know, you might face ridicule and criticism and all that, but they're coming from a place of a lack of understanding, and a lack of really experiencing what it is to come into ceremony and come into that. And that was the best thing that happened about COVID. People talk about, so many people woke up, And for me, it's a remembering. They were coming back into a remembering because we were locked down and we were isolated for the first time. And we're like, fuck, why am I going to work to an office every day? 5 days a week, 50 hours a week, not like, I'm not having a life, I'm not living. All of a sudden, I've got this time, I've got this space.
Wait, I'm not happy.
I am not happy. Holy shit, I am not happy in my relationship. I'm not happy in this job. Like, fuck. And, you know, it was huge.
Worldwide shake-up. Hey?
It was a shake-up. And, you know, it's beautiful that so many people more and more people are coming online and on board with it. But there's still so much further to go. And there's so many.
I feel like it's gone a little bit too far as well in the spiritual community, because you got, people that are waking up, but then there are people that have sort of gone too into their minds and out of their body now, where I'll just say, for instance, I work with this girl and she likes to call us woke. I don't like that word anymore because the way that community is
it used to sort of mean something, right? Like, I remember, because once I'd had that first medicine experience and I was traveling to Peru and having those experiences with the medicine, you know, the Wachuma, which is the cactus grandfather medicine, ayahuasca is the grandmother medicine, and that changed me, right? At that point after ayahuasca, I let my hair grow, you know, I let my beard grow, and I was still going into school, and the kids were like, oh, you're a hippie. Like, you're a hippie now. Because I used to be like clean cut, like, you know, just super strong fades and really clean cut and everything. And I went from that to like long hair, bushy beard and everything. And the kids I noticed in the classroom were not taking me seriously. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. Because they were like, oh, you're a hippie. You're just a hippie. And I'm like, fuck, what is that? Yeah. You know, it's a label. It's just another label. Yeah. And it was like, okay, what does a hippie mean to you? I used to ask them. And like, oh, you know, that like love, you just all about the earth. Yeah, and all that sort of stuff. It's like, they don't even know. It's just a word that they've heard. And I was like, oh, yeah, you just, you know, with the earth and that sort of stuff. I'm like, and what's wrong with that? Nothing, but you're just a hippie. Yeah. So I went to Peru and had this experience, and it was like a message that came through in ceremony. And it was like, you need to cut your hair, you need to shave your beard, because you will get through to these kids. Yeah, right. And I was like, okay. So I literally got back from ceremony. We finished up at like 8 o'clock at night, and for some reason I went out and I bought a razor. It was like a single blade razor. I had like 2 months of growth, and it took me about 2.5 hours to shave this beard, like with just the tap and his single blade.
Yeah.
And it hurt and pulled like nothing else. And I was like, wow. And everyone in the group, they didn't even recognize me the next morning. Like, oh, Ben, oh shit. Like, you've had a shave. And then I got back to school and went back to teaching and everything. And they're like, oh, you're not a hippie anymore. And I was like, so me having a beard defined me as being a hippie.
Yeah.
Right? And I find that people, we do it unconsciously. We like to label people. You know, we look through our lens and what our programs are that have been instilled and downloaded from our parents and all that sort of stuff. So we look at someone, we like to judge them.
Yeah.
You know, we're judging the book by its cover without ever speaking to them or approaching them and seeing what their story is. It's like hippie, jock, nerd, you know, and when we place people into these boxes, we have a perception of them. Our perception allows, oh yeah, I can interact with them, no, stay away from them, and that sort of stuff.
Created boundary now.
So rather than, you know, fully opening up and engaging with these people, it's like, oh no, they look like a junkie, I'm not going to go talk to them because, you know, they might rob me or they might like, you know, I don't want to get infected or whatever like that. But first and foremost, they're a human being and they've got a story. We've all got a story. So we need to remove these labels. And I had a student who's like, so you're woke. And I was like, I'd never heard the term before. And this is going back 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd never heard the term. It was being thrown around by people that were sharing alternative views.
Yeah.
Because I used to go into school after those experiences and share with the kids real conversation. You know, I started to see things for what it was and what was happening to them and with them, and talking to them open and honestly and saying that there's so much more out in that world that you need to prepare yourselves for and that you can experience if you open yourself up to doing that. And started sharing and showing different sides of the coin from more than what was just told in the history books. Who writes the history books? Those his story. Whose story is it? Where is this story coming from? And does it line up with what the teachers that, you know, I had sat with around the fire sharing their stories? And it was sort of like, this doesn't line up, this doesn't feel right. And it was almost like a truth had been suppressed and sort of was being kept from us, because it was like, no, this is what you need to think, this is what you need to remember, and this is the way it was. Okay, let's not look at this side, this perspective or whatever. It's like, no, this is right because this is in the book. This is what you need to remember. Remember this, put it into your memory. You know, we're going to test you on how well you can memorize that. That's it. So with that, it's just like, man, you see it come from that about looking at more alternative views, but it's not so much. It's like on this scale of polarity. Yeah. And it's about getting the whole story rather than just listening to one source and going, yep, that's it.
Yeah. Throw the rest away.
That's truth. Yeah. Why is it truth? Or because you heard it on the news or you read it in the paper. You know,
reliable source.
Every single media company and outlet, every single one, if you think about all the magazines, all the news stations and everything, comes back to 6 people.
Yeah.
6 people own every single news stream and service. You don't think that they have an agenda? Yeah. You don't think that they have their own views and everything that they want to push and guide people's energy and funnel their energy and point of attention and awareness to? And anything else outside of that is considered, you know, conspiracy. Yeah. And it's like, no. But then, as you said, you know, woke. Yeah. And it's like, man.
Oh, yeah, coming back to that, woke. So there was this girl I work with, right? And, like, I'm a big believer in UFOs, like aliens, like entities, because I've experienced things like that. But this girl I work with was, like, so sure. She was pointing up in the sky at this cloud. And she was like, that's a ship. It's a UFO. And I was like, okay, I'm all for that, but, like, where's the logic here? Like, trying to figure it out. And what I was thinking was, where is this something spiritual where she's connecting with, or is she spiritual bypassing? There's some sort of thing happening in her day, and she's choosing not to look at it, and now she's created a false reality for her to connect with. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, again, with that, there is technology that, governments and military and all that sort of stuff. And, if we go down this deep, we don't want to get it cancelled and everything. But, again, it just comes down to research and looking at the potential.
Yeah.
If we take it back, rewind to September 9/11.
Yeah.
2001, I still remember that. Being at school and everything and seeing it, it was like, what happened at that? A lot of that doesn't add up.
No.
The dots don't connect, don't match, but what happened? And usually when we see big conflicts or big events like that, it's to distract us from something else. And the day before, they announced, there was like this $30 trillion money that had gone missing that they couldn't account for, that had gone into the black hole and all that sort of stuff. And people are like, what do you mean? How can that much money just go missing and not be accounted for? And the next day, boom. Oh yeah, forget about that.
Yeah.
2 planes brought down 3 buildings.
Yeah.
Okay. So
same thing with COVID. Like all that Hollywood stuff was starting to come up to the surface. And then all of a sudden COVID's here.
Yep. And then it's sort of like, there's levels and layers to this wokeness that people talk about.
Yeah.
But again, it's something that we can't give our energy to and make it our focus, because I remember there was a time when I started to go down, big rabbit holes. And those rabbit holes went down to foxholes, to wombat, to like big trenches.
Pig swamp.
And, like T saw me one night because I was like going deep and looking into, some pretty dark stuff.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and I was like eyes gaunt and like bandicoot eyes. And she's like, nah, get outside, ground yourself, clear yourself. You're going too far.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit. And when I came back to my awareness, it was like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, in this wanting to know and researching, I was giving a lot of energy away to that. And it was draining me. I could feel it draining me. So it's about knowing, having a balance, being aware of the forces at play and that sort of stuff, and also not giving your energy to it. Not feeding it.
Yeah, because you touch darkness, it touches you.
That's it. So it's being aware of where it is, what it's doing, and giving it love, sending it love, and coming back to your heart and being your highest level of expression. And by doing so, you may inspire those that you're walking down when you go to the street, or just say hello at the shops. Because people are like, they
snap them out of there.
Snap them out of the dream and the fear. And it's so beautiful that people are opening up and talking more about ceremony and these medicines, and realizing the bigger picture of what's going on, and looking at these things that are being implemented and put into place to restrict us. And all it takes for us is to not pick a side, but to say, I'm not playing. I'm not playing your game. Because for me personally, it's not about not compliance or compliance. It's about I'm doing what is right for me, for my family, and honoring ceremony.
That's the I, we, all mentality. So in saying that, let's go into your daily rituals to serve yourself, to keep your cup full. What does an average day, or maybe a not so average day, look like in Ben Borg for rituals or ceremonies? What do you do for yourself?
For me, the moment that I rise, I try to be real intentional with my time and where I'm directing my energy, and where my thoughts and energy are going towards. So, usual day waking up or rising is about 4:30, but my body seems to wake me up a little bit before that. And I will get up, do an ice bath, get straight into the cold, do something tough, and I witness and observe the stories of everything telling me why I don't want it and should not get in there. 0 degrees, it's 4:30, dark out in the morning. Like, what are you doing getting into the ice for? But I go into it. I start my day with doing something hard. And then I will go to the gym, move my body. And while I'm at the gym, I'm listening to an audiobook or a podcast. I'm trying to fuel my brain and my body while I'm moving. And then I will turn that off, and I will do a meditation with the sunrise and focusing barefoot, looking out, overlooking the ocean, feet on the ground, and just really taking in and soaking in the prana, the energy of the sun. So before most people are even waking up and rolling over, scrolling through their phones, having a shower, coffee, and then going off to work, I've done something tough. I have moved my body. I've sat in stillness, set my intention for the day, fueled my body with wholesome nourishment, food, whole foods, and then I'm ready to start my day, however that needs to look and be. At the moment, it's going to school, and playing that role as a teacher. I know it doesn't serve me. It's like I've got one foot in the system at the moment and I'm trying to work out. Because for me, the most important part is ceremony. Yeah. And I will sit in ceremony every day. And it doesn't mean sitting with medicine or with cacao or something every day. It's about sitting in stillness, immersing myself in nature and the elements. Whether it be around a fire, by a water source somewhere, and just sitting and being. Playing with my boy. The toughest thing for me right now is when I go to school is that he doesn't understand that, right? And he rises first thing in the morning. So by the time I get home from doing my movement, meditation, everything, he's up and wanting to play. And it's so hard to pull myself away to leave through because he is in tears. Yeah. Every day I leave. And that was the best thing about the lockdown, because for the first year and a half of his life, due to my choices that I made based on my research and that, and not choosing to have any medical intervention or anything like that, I wasn't allowed to work. I was still doing my ceremonial stuff, and that's what got me by and got me through. I was doing whatever I needed to still provide for my family and keep a roof over our head. But, once everything opened up and going back to school, it was sort of like, okay, but he's older now. And with that, it's so hard. It breaks my heart every day going to work and watching him. And I want to have a life for me and my family where I don't have to leave him. Because I go there and I feel myself being drained, my energy, because kids don't want to be there.
But that's the
they
positive.
Don't understand.
That's
right?
the positive aspect of the prostitute archetype there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. And Paul Checker alludes to that, and that's something that really landed for me. The prostitute archetype, in that, it's not what you want to do, but it's what you need to do. Yeah. And the money that you receive, the exchange that you receive for giving your energy to that, you are then investing it into your future, in what that needs to look like. Yeah. So my attitude is, when I go to school now, is to talk to the kids on the level. And really, hopefully, it is my intention to go there and share and talk to them and with them about eating whole foods, about organic, the importance of connecting with nature and learning skills that are going to be useful, rather than outsourcing to anyone and everyone else. Yeah. Because when you're lacking of skill set and everything, how are you going to look after yourself if everything goes to shit? Yeah, exactly. So that's something that I draw inspiration from you, and living on the land and moving on the land and really becoming sufficient in hunting, in sourcing food and growing your own food. It's like, that's incredible. Yeah. And that's the vision and prayer that I have for my family, and learning the skills that I know that I didn't receive, not through a lack of not knowing. I know my parents had their highest intention and best intention for me, and it was about going to university and getting a job and ticking all the boxes. But I have this skill in being able to talk, and it really set me up for holding space and ceremony, but I lack skills. And that's why I'm not afraid of hard work. And, I was doing anything to get by and doing concreting, and I enjoyed that, the physicality and working. It gave a purpose. And I was learning something that I can then take, because it's being able to do and create and build with your own hands rather than just paying someone else to do it all the time.
Yeah.
So that is what I am working towards.
Well, I'm sure you'll get it, because
it's a prayer.
the love's a boomerang, and it's going to come back. And
that's it.
I've just been watching you over the years, in the short time that I've known you, and just watched you and Teal grow so much. And just the inspiration that you guys give off for me and Kira to grow as well has been beautiful. And yeah, we'd love to have you up on the farm next time you're passing by. Please come and stay for the weekend.
Love to. It's
get down the water and stuff. We're running really low on battery. I just don't want this to cut out and not save. So Sacred Breath of Life is where people can find you.
Yeah.
And Teal as well.
Yeah, so it's tealsoulsacredbreathoflife.org. That's where you can reach out to us, usually on through Instagram and all that. We work through word of mouth.
Yeah.
We have a retreat coming up in the Blue Mountains next year.
Beautiful.
And then in the final stages of working out a retreat to Peru, or an immersion to Peru, and just taking people to the lands that, really kicked off my journey, and sharing that magic with everyone.
Yeah.
So we hold private ceremonies, we hold open ceremonies, and that traveling up and down. We'll be up in Sunny Coast and Harvey Bay area just after New Year, and looking to do a few ceremonies and everything. That's where _sacred breath of life is where you can find me on Instagram, and usually just contact there, send a message, and we can be in contact and see how we can help.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, next time we'll definitely get Teal on as well and have you both together, because she's got some amazing wisdom to share as well.
Absolutely.
So, do you want to leave the listeners with any drop of wisdom, any nuggets?
Oh man, it's look at where you're at now, and even just take a breath, close your eyes, and when you open your eyes each morning, when you rise, are you excited for the day ahead, or are you just wishing the day away to be back home and just relax, just vegging out and sort of numbing out with your TV? And if when you open your eyes you're not feeling motivated, you're not feeling inspired, maybe it's time to do some work. Maybe it's time to start reflecting on what it is that brings you joy and love, and be of your highest expression, because that's what we need. The world needs you to be doing what you love and sharing that, and the inspiration and the love and the energy that you give off from doing that is going to inspire others to do the same. So that's what came through.
Amazing,
for
brother.
now, and I'm sure we could keep on talking for hours and hours. So
this has been amazing. Like, if we didn't have a time cut off here, I've got to travel 3 hours now with the baby as well.
But thank you so much, bro, for coming here and sticking around and coming to our space. It's been awesome.
Oh, I love coming here. It's so humbling. Yeah.
Great to have you as always, bro.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for listening, guys. Peace out.
Thank you all.